All right, let's try this again. Sorry, everybody. We seem to be having trouble with Rumble for some unknown reason, and it's very, very frustrating. Jesus Christ. So I apologize, but let's try this again anyway. We're just going to 86 Rumble for now, and we'll try that again later. There we go. Rumble is no longer live. That's very depressing, but oh well. Welcome, everyone, to the first reading that I will do from Murray Rothbard's The Anatomy of the State. Do not worry. I intend to finish this entire book within the day. And I will be sending this out to anyone who got, well, disappointed by what happened earlier. I apologize. Without further ado, Murray Rothbard's The Anatomy of the State. Quote, Dr. Rothbard received his doctorate in economics from Columbia University and has been a consulting economist and historian for the past 6 years. Among the many books he has authored is, quote, What Has Government Done to Our Money? Published by and available from Pine Tree Press, Box 158, Larkspur, Colorado. Unquote. And I will tell you, anyone who has gone to Barnes & Noble and has tried to get a hold of any of Rothbard's works from the store shelves, yeah, good luck. Send me a postcard, let me know how that works out, because it didn't work out for me. Anyway, point number 1 of the book, what the state is not. The state is almost universally considered an institution of social service. Some theorists venerate the state as the apotheosis of society. Others regard it as an amiable, though often inefficient, organization for achieving social ends. But almost all regard it as a necessary means for achieving the goals of mankind, a means to be ranged against the private sector and often winning in this competition of resources. With the rise of democracy, there's a word I hate, until it is common to hear sentiments expressed with which violate virtually every tenet of reason and common sense, such as, quote, we are the government, unquote. The useful collective term we has enabled an ideological camouflage to be thrown over the reality of political life. If, quote, we are the government, unquote, then anything a government does to an individual is not only just and untyrannical, it is also voluntary on the part of the individual concerned. If the government has incurred a huge public debt which must be paid by taxing one group for the benefit of another, this reality of burden, this reality of burden is obscured by saying that, quote, we owe it to ourselves, unquote. If the government conscripts a man or throws him into jail for dissident opinion, then he is, quote, doing it to himself, unquote. And therefore nothing untoward has occurred. Yeah, that's cute. Under this reasoning, any Jews murdered by the Nazi government were, in fact, not murdered. Instead, they must have committed suicide, since they were the government, which was democratically chosen, and therefore anything the government did to them was voluntary on their part. Wow, that's actually kind of disgusting. One would not think it necessary to belabor this point, and yet the overwhelming bulk of the people hold this fallacy to a greater or less degree. We must therefore emphasize that we are not the government. The government is not us. The government does not, in any accurate sense, represent the majority of the people. Point number one. But even if it did, even if 70% of the people decided to murder the remaining 30%, this would still be murder and would not be voluntary suicide on the part of the slaughtered minority. Point number two, which I will now read. Point number one. We cannot, in this paper, develop the many problems and fallacies of democracy. Suffice it to say here that an individual's true agent or representative is always subject to that individual's orders, can be dismissed at any time, and cannot act contrary to the interests or wishes of his principal. Clearly, the representative in a democracy can never fulfill such agency functions, the only ones consonant with a libertarian society. Point number two. Social democrats often retort that democracy, majority choice of rulers, logically implies that the majority must leave certain freedoms to the minority, for the minority might one day become the majority. Apart from other flaws, this argument obviously does not hold where the minority cannot become the majority. Example, when the minority is of a different racial or ethnic group from the majority. End of those 2 points. No organicist metaphor, no irrelevant bromide that, quote, we are all part of one another, unquote, must be permitted to obscure this basic fact. If then the state is not us, if it is not the human family getting together to decide mutual problems, if it is not a lodge meeting or country club, what is it? Briefly, the state is that organization in society which attempts to maintain a monopoly of the use of force and violence in a given territorial area. In particular, it is the only organization in society that obtains its revenue not by voluntary contribution or payment for services rendered, but by coercion. While other individuals or institutions obtain their income by production of goods and services, and by the peaceful and voluntary sale of these goods and services to others, the state obtains its revenue by the use of compulsion, i.e., by the use and the threat of the jailhouse and the bayonet. All right. Let's see how this went. Thank you for hearing me out. And for the life of me, I have no idea why we're running into technical difficulties after everything I did this morning, but that is besides the point. Thank you for hearing me out, and we'll pick this back up very shortly. Until then, live free or die trying.